Hello and welcome to week 4 of development on Disinherited. This week I finally got to expand beyond the catacombs. I'll be returning to it for sure, but if we want to have something that looks like a complete game in 82 days, we've got some urgent matters to attend to. So in the catacombs we have 4 unique enemies. We've got the throwy skeletons, the crawly skeletons, the spiders, and the ghosts. I still want some more there, but let's compare to the other areas which have 1 apiece. Now that's a start, but it's gonna get pretty dry without some more variety. Luckily, a Discord member named Nate Debingus suggested an idea that was too great to pass up. It's a clockwork frog that steals your items with its tongue. It's a perfect extension of the existing mechanics, and it happens to fit very well into the next area that I want to build, the Infinite Machine. So I'll show you how it works and the other progress for this week. My name's Dryden Thomas, and this is Disinherited. It's a side-scrolling roguelike where you catch, throw, and parry your way through Death's domain to kill the Grim Reaper and claim eternal life, all to spite your father who cut you out of his will. For those of you who don't know, I'm a solo developer, and this is the 28th day of my 100-day challenge to finish Disinherited. By finish, I mean that I want it to be a complete working game loop with a satisfying and replayable experience. At the end of this 100 days, I want to launch a Kickstarter that will determine how much further I can build out the game. My goal is then to release in February 2025 after that month's Steam Next Fest. But for now, here's week 4 progress. Now, many of you pointed out the lack of sound effects in the Guillaume fight last week, which was very accurate. I probably should have mentioned something about it in the video, but basically no work has been done on sound effects yet. For one thing, that tends to be the last layer that you put on. You don't want to spend all this time polishing sound for movements or visuals that are going to change. But also, I hadn't yet transitioned to my final audio system, which is Wise. Wise is an audio middleware, which is basically like a program that lives in your game and pulls all the levers when it comes to music and sound. It can do a lot of things that Unity's built-in systems can't do very well. Last week felt like a good cue to get the ball rolling and integrate it into my Unity project. Then I sat down and did some concept work for a new area and a new boss, but it's not quite ready to be shared yet. Saturday was really busy, and then Sunday it was time to make some real progress. This next area that I'm working on is called the Infinite Machine. If it's been a little while or you're new to the channel, here's what it's all about. There was a brilliant scientist named Augusta Weaving, and her life's mission was to create an all-powerful machine. But her theories were stolen by her colleagues, and she was buried in history. She knew that with enough time she could create it herself though, so she found her own path into Death's domain and made a bid for immortality. Each area after the catacombs is a reflection of the powerful soul that inhabits it. Kind of like walking through a manifestation of their dream or their desires. This area is her infinite machine, and it's going to be full of mechanical creatures and devices and more. I started by drawing some decorations for the area. Initially, I took a lot of visual inspiration from Babbage's Difference engine, but I didn't want to be penned in by that. So I kept the gear motif, but I added these curves that sort of suggest Augusta's poetic side. Now, her work as a scientist involves constant reading and research, so I thought she should have some bookcases. And then light bulbs also slot into this theme. And then I guess I was kind of free associating, and this is a steam whistle? I'm not sure about that, but I do think that steam escapes could make for an interesting trap. Now this is just a start. There need to be a whole lot more decorations, so if you've got anything you'd like to see, just let me know. Color palette wise, I'm looking to draw from Augusta herself. She has this violet and copper thing going on, which is only one color away from a split complementary palette. Add in some olive green and you've got the whole set. Also on the subject of decorations, I was playing around with some ideas of how to add depth through parallax, that effect where things that are further away seem to move slower than things that are close to you as you move past them. In Lighthoof, I use a perspective camera and I arrange the objects so that they're further or closer to the camera so that you get this automatic sense of parallax. But for Disinherited, I'm using an orthographic camera, which means that even objects that are further away appear to be the same size. I was able to add a little bit though. I made this shader effect that uses the camera's position and the relationship to the image to kind of scroll it around at a different speed. So the backgrounds have a parallax. But this wasn't gonna work for the other decorations, which don't repeat endlessly. Or was it? So I'm sorry in advance for how nerdy this is about to get, but if you've made it this far, chances are you're into it. There's this technique called vertex displacement that's often used to make foliage sway or water move in games. You basically take the individual corners of a 3D mesh and you use math to make them dance. So I was thinking, if parallax is just moving at a different speed, why wouldn't I be able to use vertex displacement to create a parallax effect? And it worked. I'm really surprised that I haven't heard of other 2D devs using this technique, because I can't be the first person to have thought of it. Hopefully that doesn't mean there are a bunch of hidden gotchas that I'm gonna find out about later. But this does mean that I have some new ideas about how to implement more layers of depth. I can see a lot of potential here in creating some more background variety, but I'm still thinking through ways of actually implementing that. Anyway, back to the drawing. I ended up drawing 2 new enemies for the Infinite Machine area. The first one didn't get rigged up and programmed yet, so you'll have to subscribe if you want to see that next week. But the other one definitely did. I'm calling it the Potbelly because of the shape of its body. For the visual design, I thought it would be cool to give him these little hydraulics on the legs, as well as a big gear to imitate the shape of a frog's powerful hind legs. And then the curved ornaments and other gears keep him in line with the other visual language of the area. Once I get him drawn, I need to pull him apart into pieces and bring him into the engine. I use the sprite skinning tool to add bones, and I try to remove unnecessary points from the mesh. In this rig, I added a couple more bones than usual so I can bend the foot and create a more springy and fluid motion. Then I gave him the animations he needed. His first attack is a hop, which is also his movement, but you don't necessarily know when he'll hit the ground if he's jumping up or down a level. So the landing animation needs to be separated out. And then the transition to the landing is triggered when the Potbelly hits the ground. His signature move is the tongue attack. This was interesting to program because it works very similarly to the player's catch mechanic. In fact, I can probably refactor them into being the same script eventually, but for now I didn't want to break anything that was already in place. Basically, there's a hitbox on the tip of the tongue, and if it hits you and you have a held item, you're forced to drop it, and it attaches to the tongue and goes into the frog's belly, like then he starts hopping away. I imagine this being more annoying and threatening the more valuable your held item is, but it's also pretty entertaining. For a last detail, I made it so that the Potbelly can jump off of walls if they get hit while airborne. It feels right and it makes the movement more surprising and lively. They're not too hard to take down though. You can parry the tongue or the hop, which leaves them open for death blow damage. And if you end up getting your revenge, he'll drop the item he stole. And speaking of items, we have some new relics and some old relics with new looks. First, let's talk about Arachne's cloak. Commenter TryXJester taught me the term himation for classical Greek outerwear, and I love it. Wait, hold on.
Himadian.
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 Himadian for classical Greek outerwear. So this is now Arachne's Himadian. But I was looking for some patterns for Himadians, and I'm pretty sure that it's just like a big cloth rectangle when it's not being worn. So I embellished a little to give it a unique shape and added this brooch with a spider design. Then there was some curiosity about what would happen if you got both Aegises, since one increases your defense when you have higher light levels and the other one increases your defense when you have lower light levels. One commenter suggested that if you have both, you should want to keep your light in the middle, and I think that's really great as an evolution since that's where your light naturally lays anyway. But one of my favorite parts of Vampire Survivors is the upgrade fusion, so I thought why not have the two fuse into one? And the result is Aegis Cosmia. I also adjusted the other two to emphasize blue and red for their accent colors, so the purple gem in the center of this one makes sense. And the last thing, I changed the name of Aegis Luna to Aegis Mena. I realized that this is so pedantic and does not matter, but it was really bothering that Aegis is Greek and Luna is Latin. So even though Mene is a lesser known moon goddess, I can now sleep at night. Plus the Mena sounds a little bit like minus, so it kind of reminds you that this is the one where you want to keep your light levels lower. Last, we've got a new relic. This is the Ninox Mask. With this relic, enemies that are outside your circle of light take double damage. This pairs really well with the crystal skull that makes enemies glow, as well as any other relics that encourage low light play. There was some other stuff that happened this week, but it's either too boring or I'm saving it for a new video. That's it for week 4. And by the way, if you're interested, don't forget to head over to Steam and wishlist Disinherited. It's getting quite a bit of momentum on there, but somebody last week reminded me to remind you, so this is me doing that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.